Weekends are all about sleeping in, big breakfasts, and of course getting out into the garden. And with autumn comes a whole range of great projects that we can get stuck into. So here's what I'll be doing this weekend. It's bulb time, so if you're one of those people that sees all the beautiful daffodils and tulips in full flower in the springtime and thinks, oh, I wish I'd done that back in the autumn, here's your friendly reminder that now is the time to get all of those winter spring flowering bulbs in the ground. So that's things like snowflakes and tulips and daffodils, hyacinths, all those beauties. But if, like me, at the end of the season, you hate the look of that straggly dying bulb foliage, but you know it's really important to let it die down, here's a little planting tip for you. So get your hands on a colander or a chip fryer like this, works really well. Just dig a hole into your garden beds and plant directly into the container. Now, most bulbs like to be planted pointy end up, with the exception of ranunculi, which you can plant claw down. But I love this idea. If you don't know which way a bulb should be planted, just plant it sideways, and by the magic of nature, it will find its way to the top. And the beauty of the colander is that when those bulb flowers begin to die down and look a bit manky, you can just pull the whole colander out of the soil, put it behind the shed to allow those leaves to die down. And while you're waiting for the bulbs to appear, why not plant the whole area out with a bit of potted colour? Here's another unique way to grow bulbs. So I've done this project at home many times and it works really well. So what we're going to do is we're going to grow bulbs using nothing but pebbles and water. And it works really well with the bigger bulbs, so things like hyacinths and daffodils. So what you do is you start with a waterproof saucer. So this one's just a nice glazed one, but you could also use plastic, and you fill it with pebbles. So you want the pebbles to be flat enough that you can put the bulbs on top. So pointy end up, and don't be afraid to really cram them together. It just helps to stop them from toppling over. All right, so now all we need to do is add a little bit of water to the base. And you want the water to be just below the base of the bulbs. Then I like to put the whole thing in a kind of cool, shady spot, so maybe underneath a tree, just until you get some green noses poking through. Then you can bring it out into the full sun to flourish. And by spring, this will be a massive colour and the perfect centrepiece for your outdoor table. Now, I've always thought that potted plants were as pretty as a picture, so here is a project that combines both. So it's another great little table centrepiece, but this time we're going to use succulents. So what I've got is a nice sort of Italian terracotta bowl here. I'm just going to fill it with some cacti and succulent mix, which is really nice and free draining. Then you want to get your hands on another terracotta pot that's much smaller, and you submerge it into the pot sideways. What we're going to do is plant it out with a beautiful mixture of succulents so that it creates a flat pitcher. So I really like to use a different mix of foliage textures and forms. So I'm going to start by putting this little sedum in here. It's called sedum jelly beans. It's such a great name. The kids love it. So I also like to include some of the more rosette looking succulents. So this is one of the hen and chickens. And you can almost plant it flat so that it sits in there to the side. Then, if you can, get some foliage contrast. So this is one of the burgundy coloured aeoniums that we're just going to pop again into the side there. I also like to use some of the trailing succulents. So this is string of pearls. I'm just going to tuck it in the edges there so it looks like it's trailing down the edges of the container. Okay, I've divided the string of pearls so it's a little bit fiddly. So I'll get those gloves off and then we'll just put it in the sides. And then to complete the picture, you just cover all of the potting mix area with fine white landscape chips or pebbles. You could also use succulent cuttings from your own garden or a neighbour's to do a project like this. Now take a look. Isn't that picture perfect? It'll be the talking point at your next dinner party. At this time of year, we see a changeover in the vegetable patch. So some of you might still be harvesting some of your summer crops or ripping out old ones. But it's also the time of year that we actually start planting and getting those cool season crops in the ground. So that's all those things that provide us with wonderful produce for hearty soups and stews. Now, brassicas are a really big feature of the kitchen garden through the cooler months. So that's things like cauliflower, cabbages, and broccoli. Now, the problem with the brassicas can tend to be that they will take up a lot of space in the veggie patch for a long period of time. So when I'm growing them, I tend to look for the more productive varieties. So this is one called broccoli bambino. It's one of the branching broccolis. So what happens is when it forms that first floret, you simply lop it off, it sends out heaps of side shoots, and you can continue to harvest it for months. So the other thing you can do if you want to make the most of your space is to look out for miniature varieties. This is cauliflower mini and cabbage mini. They take up less space in the garden for a shorter amount of time. Plus, they produce beautiful compact heads that are perfect for a side dish. The other thing that I like to do is to intercrop some of those slower growing crops with faster growing crops like lettuces. So if you take a look, this is one of the heirloom lettuce mixes. Have a look at the foliage there, isn't it beautiful? But it's one of the loose leaf types of lettuces. So that means that you can nip out into the garden, harvest the outside leaves as you need it, and the plant just keeps on growing. So it's like having a salad bar in your backyard. Here's a little tip for you. If any of you have got like wire baskets like this hanging out at home, you can just simply pop them over the top of your seedlings. Just helps to protect them from some of those bigger pests like rabbits or even birds that love to kick out young seedlings. So there's some great little projects that you can get stuck into this weekend that'll keep your garden looking great over the coming months.